that case, you sort of let the taxpayers decide where they think their money should go, instead of letting the state decide.
Well, I think we need to have a smaller and smarter government, one that is takes out less from the citizens of the state's pocketbooks, but can also be leaner and smarter about how we do things.
Let's talk a little bit about spending then, because you alluded earlier about job growth. One segment of job growth that has grown in New Jersey has been state employees. There was a recent article or editorial recently in the Wall Street Journal where it talked about, I don't remember the numbers, but the numbers of employees have grown pretty dramatically over the past 10 years in the state, much more so than the rate of inflation. Why is that, and what can we do to curb that growth?
Well, you've seen what's happened in the state of New Jersey is there's been there have been more public sector jobs created in the last decade in the state of New Jersey than there have been private sector jobs created in the last decade in the state of New Jersey. And that's a trend that can't continue if we're going to continue to be productive. And what we need to focus on are those new policies, work in a bipartisan way to find Republicans and Democrats alike, to be able to grow the private sector and focus on those things that the government does well and doesn't do well. I mean, I personally think there are ways we can look at what the various overlapping levels of government do and don't do well. I mean, you as a mayor do a great job here in Westfield. Many mayors,
Thank you, Senator.
and many mayors throughout the state do. But I think as we look across the state and how we are spending the people's money, we should look at it and say, is the state government doing things it should be doing or not? Or is county government still doing things that it needs to be doing or not? And where can we work with municipalities to figure out ways that we can create better efficiencies? I think we can work on that, and by looking at that whole picture, we can reduce the overall spending pot that goes out of people's pocket and into government.
Well, yeah, I always say that our budget, we give a full presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. We should talk about here's all our revenue, here's all our expenditures, this is where it's going, almost line item by line item, and then we put it on our website so people can go and look at it and study it and see, where the spending is. That's a little harder to do at the state level, isn't it?
It
just
is.
because of the sheer size of it.
It is, but it shouldn't be. I mean, what you do on a basis is something that we should use as a model. What you, Mayor, do here in Westfield, we in the state level should use as a model. For example, I am a co-sponsor of a bill that's known as the Transparency in Government Act. It would say that how the state government spends your money should be available to be seen on a website. So when people are able to look at government, they can better understand how the government spends money. Other states have done this. Kansas has done this. Texas has done this. And in fact, the Comptroller's office in Texas went online and analyzed its own budget. And they found out that they saved $2.3 million in efficiencies because they found out, for example, that they had 5 different contracts just in this Comptroller's office for toner. And so what you have these massive overlaps. And so what I think we should do is have this Transparency in Government Act, because unlike what you do on the municipal level, Mayor, where it's laid out very, very publicly, when you put in the ordinances, when you put things through, it's really stretched out in a way that the public has a real way to interact. On the state level, that's not done. And because it's not done in that open basis, I think we should have, any sunshine helps no matter what. And I share your sentiment, Mr. Mayor, where that level of government that is closest to the people is the most efficient, is the most responsive. And so things that we can do to enhance the ability of mayors to be responsive and council members to be responsive to their constituents, I'm fully supportive of.
We have constituents coming right up to our mic and asking us questions about our budget. That opportunity doesn't really exist in Trenton in front of the full assembly or Senate, does it?
It doesn't. The only way that the public can interact is obviously through email and everything else, but when they come down, it's in the committees, only in the committee. So they see a small sector, for example, the budget committee. Okay. They can come and testify, but unlike what you do, Mr. Mayor, where it's at least 2 weeks to a month from publication to passage. In the state level, there have been times when the budget's been introduced and less than 48 hours later, it's been introduced and then passed and signed into law. And that creates a whole slew of problems. And so what I think we need to do is follow things like you do and stretch out the period of time so people can see, a budget that is transparent, is able to be seen, is able to be analyzed by the people of this state, and so they can interact with government in a better way, I think is important. So we should follow what you were doing, Mr. Mayor, in Westfield, and do that on the state level so that the public has a better chance to interact and see how their money is spent.
And it'd be nice to compare year to year to year, because I think you mentioned when you first came in the assembly, what was the state budget?
The state budget when I first took office was $21.5 billion.
$1 billion, and now
It's now 32.9. And this is, in the last 9 years, what people have seen in the state of New Jersey. And I voted against these budgets and these tax increases and these spending increases. But people have seen a budget that's increased, from 21.5 to $32.9 billion. In fact, the budget right now is 15% larger than when Governor Corzine took office. And but you look at between that and the borrowing, where it was $14 billion of state indebtedness when I took office, to now nearly approaching $40 billion. I think what we need to focus on is how are we going to make this state more affordable. And we cannot afford these one-time gimmicks. What we need to focus on is the real long-term solutions that will be these unique New Jersey solutions to make the state more affordable, to grow opportunities in the state of New Jersey so that our kids and our grandkids can continue to afford to live here. Because what we see all too frequently, because of the gimmicks and the irresponsible budget practices and the huge taxes that people are paying in the property taxes and otherwise, is it's breaking up families. You have a situation where the kid who's graduating from high school, college, can't find their first job in the state of New Jersey. You have a mid-career professional who's transferred out. You have a recent retiree who said, I can't afford to live here. Or you have a senior citizen who says, I can't afford to live here. And what does that do to the family when their grandparents or grandkids or husbands and wives can't afford to stay in the state of New Jersey? And what does that do to the family? So I think part of what we need to do, and part of the job of state legislators and people at all levels of government, is to create those policies that will make New Jersey more affordable so we can keep the families together while creating a better quality of life.
And one thing you mentioned earlier, gimmicks. The policies have to be put in place that are sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the past the state has borrowed money for their operating budget,
Yes.
which was unconstitutional. But the state Supreme Court said, do it, but only do it this time.
Right.
And now one of the things that Trenton and the governor is talking about is the deferment of the pension obligations. What's your thought on that?
Well, Mary, this is something that impacts you very closely. What's being discussed in Trenton is the ability to have each municipality has a pension obligation payment that it's responsible for, that helps pay for its municipal employees and school board employees and what have you. And what the governor wants to do, as part of his hundreds of millions of dollars of way that he's impacting the budget, is have municipalities defer those pension payments, cut them in half really, and then pay more over time in the out years. And what
significantly more over time.
Significantly more over time in the out years. And what that does, in my opinion, is again, it just kicks the can down the road. And it's a horrendous fiscal policy. And so what I've done is work together with my Republican colleagues, and all 17 Republicans in the state Senate are opposed to this gimmick. We've joined with the majority leader of the state Senate, who also agrees that's a gimmick. So we're trying to find bipartisan ways to say, let's not do the gimmicks. Let's not do these things that are only going to create problems for people not only a year from now, but 5 years from now and 20 years from now, and find those real solutions. And so what the governor's idea of this pension deferment gimmick, I think will do a great deal of damage, and what we're trying to do is find bipartisan ways to block it. Now, what we've tried to do over the last several years is present billions of dollars of recommended savings. So we can say to the governor, you can't, if you want to pursue this policy, well, these are ways you can do it in a better way. These are the savings. And just last year alone, we identified $1.32 billion in savings. That was unfortunately rejected out of hand by the governor, but if we'd been able to pursue some of these policies and some of the savings that we'd identified in the past, the governor wouldn't be looking at some of the gimmicks that he is now.